The movie begins with a search party looking for a missing couple named Carrie and Simon. Two search dogs go into an underground cave and drink from a fountain. When they come back up, they just stand there, staring at each other without moving. Their owner blows a whistle to get their attention, but they don't react, which worries him. Later that night, while the dogs are in their cages, one of them starts making a creepy crackling sound. When the owner goes to check on them, he finds that the two dogs have somehow been horribly fused into one. In a nearby city, a couple named Tim Brassington and Millie Wilson are having a going-away party with their friends. Millie is a teacher, and Tim is a musician who has mostly given up on his dreams. At the party, Tim chats with his bandmates, Jordy and Luke. Luke, who is also Millie's brother, and tries to encourage Tim to keep playing music. During the party, Millie surprises Tim by proposing to him with an invisible ring. But Tim doesn't notice the ring and takes too long to answer, making the moment uncomfortable and awkward for both of them. But in the end, he accepts her marriage proposal. That night, Millie is upset about how Tim acted at the party and says they can spend some time apart. Tim apologizes and Millie falls asleep. As she's drifting off, Tim thinks he hears her quietly saying that he wouldn't be able to live without her. He calls her name, then looks across the room and sees a creepy woman smiling next to a dead man. As he hides under the covers, the creepy woman starts crawling toward him. Tim suddenly wakes up. It was all a nightmare. It's actually Tim and Millie's first day in their new house. Tim wakes up and goes outside to find Millie carrying in the coffee machine. Even though things are still a bit awkward between them, they decide to move forward together and make the best of it. When they step into the house, Tim notices a terrible smell. He checks the ceiling and finds what looks like a dead rat, but it suddenly squeaks and scares him, causing him to drop it. Then it's revealed that the rat is tangled together with other rats by their tails, all fused into one. Tim picks up the fused rats and throws them into a nearby river. The next day, Millie starts her new job at a school. There, she becomes friends with another teacher named Jamie McCabe, who also lives in the same neighborhood as her and Tim. Millie tells Jamie about her situation with Tim, admitting that they're not really sure what to call their relationship right now. That night, Tim is playing his guitar when Millie walks in and asks when the internet will be set up in the house. Tim tells her it'll be ready next week. Then, he asks if she wants to go on a hike with him the next day, and she agrees. The next day, Tim and Millie go hiking in the nearby jungle, but they lose their way partway through. Suddenly, it starts to rain, making it even harder to find their path. Tim suggests they keep walking until they find a fountain, but Millie wants to stop and wait. Tim keeps going anyway and accidentally falls into a hole. Millie rushes to help him and tries to pull him out, but they both end up falling in. They land in an underground cave and realize they're trapped with no way to climb back out. Tim and Millie build a fire and set up a small shelter inside the cave. They also drink the water there, just like the dogs did earlier. While they rest, Millie asks Tim how he was able to smell the rats back at the house. Tim explains that when he was a kid, his dad once sensed a bad smell in their home and made Tim find it. Tim couldn't smell anything, but his dad ended up tearing apart Tim's room and found a dead rat hidden there. Not long after, Tim's dad died. His mother had a breakdown and stayed in bed with him for days, smiling through her tears while her husband's body was still in the house. The experience deeply affected Tim and has left him with emotional scars that still trouble him as an adult. After Tim finishes telling his emotional story, he and Millie fall asleep. The next morning, they wake up to find their legs stuck together, as if some strange substance has fused them. When they try to pull themselves apart, it's painful and even rips some of their skin. Despite the injury, they manage to climb out of the cave and eventually make their way back home. Back at home, Tim starts feeling a strange, intense connection to Millie, even though they haven't been close lately. While Millie drives off to work, Tim takes a shower, but suddenly loses consciousness. His body begins moving in sync with Millie's movements, causing him to accidentally hurt himself. Later, Jamie stops by, and Tim starts to suspect that he might be interested in Millie. After Jamie leaves, Tim suddenly kisses Millie with passion, but their lips stick together unnaturally. When they pull apart, it's painful. That night, while they sleep, Tim begins choking on Millie's hair, which has somehow gotten into his throat. He has to yank it out forcefully to breathe. The next day, Millie drops Tim off at the train station for a band performance. However, instead of boarding the train, Tim leaves his things behind and walks all the way to Millie's school. Once there, Millie hides him in the boys' restroom. Things quickly escalate when Tim initiates injection game, and Millie goes along with it. Their encounter becomes intense, but when Tim tries to pull away, he realizes he's physically stuck inside her. They struggle to separate in pain, and a student seems to catch a glimpse of them. After they finally pull apart, Jamie walks in, and Tim quickly hides. Millie tries to cover up the situation by claiming she had lady problems and had to use the boys' restroom in an emergency. Later on, Millie visits Jamie's house to apologize for Tim's strange behavior. During their conversation, Jamie tells her about a cult that used to exist in the area, one that believed in strange rituals and practices. As Jamie begins to talk about his own past and a failed relationship, Millie suddenly notices Tim standing outside, looking dazed. She quickly leaves. That night, something eerie happens. Millie seems to be floating and moving in sync with Tim, even though she's unconscious. Tim opens the door and sees her drifting unnaturally, so he rushes over and slaps her to wake her up. Tim goes to see a doctor about what he's been experiencing, but the doctor dismisses it as panic attacks and gives him a prescription. After leaving, Tim notices missing person posters for Carrie and Simon. Curious, he looks them up and finds their last Facebook post. He checks the photo's EXIF data and discovers GPS coordinates, which point to a location not far from his and Millie's new home. Near that spot, Tim also finds a bell marked with strange symbols, the same ones he's seen around the area before. When he shares all of this with Millie, hoping it might explain what's happening to him, she brushes it off. Instead, she coldly compares his behavior to that of his mother, saying he's just living with something that's dead. That night, Tim decides to sleep in a separate room from Millie. But as they sleep, a mysterious force begins dragging them out of their rooms and toward each other. Their arms start to fuse together painfully. They manage to pull themselves apart, but the experience leaves Tim shaken. In desperation, he takes the diazepam prescribed by the doctor, hoping it will knock him out and stop whatever is happening to him. In the morning, Tim wakes up to find that his and Millie's arms have fused together overnight. To help him, Millie gives Tim some whiskey to dull the pain, then uses a buzzsaw to cut the skin between their arms. It's painful and messy, but they manage to separate. After calming down, Millie decides they need to go to the hospital, but she soon realizes she left her car keys at Jamie's house. She heads there to get them, while Tim stays behind to avoid causing more trouble. While alone, Tim returns to the cave. Inside, he finds other people grotesquely fused to the walls, and among them are Carrie and Simon, now merged into a disturbing, monstrous form. One of their fused hands grabs Tim, but he fights back, using a knife to slash their fingers off so he can escape. Millie arrives at Jamie's house, but doesn't find him right away. Instead, she sees a wedding video playing. It shows two men, one of whom looks a lot like Jamie. In the video, the men are undergoing a strange ritual where they fuse together into a single being. Jamie then appears and reveals the truth. He is the fusion of those two men, and he was part of the cult he had mentioned earlier. The cult's purpose was to physically bring people together to become whole, and he believes Tim and Millie should go through the same process. Jamie suddenly slashes Millie's wrist, but she strikes him in the face. The blow is so strong that it causes Jamie to split back into the two men he once was. Millie runs home and finds Tim, who has returned from the cave. Broken and desperate, Tim is about to slit his own throat to avoid being forced into the fusion. But as an unseen force starts pulling them back together, Tim mimics Millie's earlier proposal, finally expressing how deeply he loves her. Millie, wounded and exhausted, shows Tim her bleeding wrist and quietly accepts her fate. She dies in his arms, just as they're being pulled together. A frantic Tim carries Millie back into the house. She eventually wakes up and realizes that Tim has willingly fused his arm to hers in order to stop her bleeding and save her life. Realizing that the fusion is unavoidable, Millie and Tim finally accept their fate. They reaffirm their love for each other and take off their clothes to dance together. As they kiss passionately, their bodies slowly merge into one, becoming a single, unified being. Later, Millie's parents arrive at the house for Sunday dinner. When the door opens, they are greeted by a calm, normal-looking androgynous person who carries the features of both Tim and Millie, now fully fused into one. In this way, movie ends here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.